All right, so the future of AI, it all comes down to solving this one massive, kind of hidden problem: how we get, how we value, and how we actually use the data that fuels it all. And right now, that whole system, it's breaking. But a new model is popping up to fix it. Let's get into it.
Okay, so here's our game plan. We're going to start with AI's just incredible hunger for data. Then, we'll look at why the current system just can't keep up. From there, we'll explore this new idea, this new economic model that turns data into a real asset. We'll even see a real-world example from the robotics industry, which is pretty cool. And finally, we'll look at the grand vision here, building what's called a knowledge layer for AI.
First up, let's just talk about the sheer scale of this thing. The whole AI boom we're seeing right now, especially with these huge large language models, well, it's all powered by this absolutely insatiable appetite for high-quality data. It's the fuel that makes this whole engine run, plain and simple.
And this is where we hit the big problem. See, to get smarter, AIs don't just need more data, they need better data. We're talking expert-level, super nuanced stuff. But, well, we're kind of hitting a wall. The supply of that really high-quality information is becoming a serious bottleneck, and it's holding back the next big wave of innovation.
So this leads us right to the heart of the conflict. The way we've been handling data for the last few decades, the traditional models, they just weren't built for the demands of the AI era. They are, to put it bluntly, fundamentally broken.
And this slide really lays it all out, right? The old model on the left, it's all centralized. A few big players are in control, and they usually just pay experts a one-time fee for their data, which you can imagine is a terrible long-term incentive. But the new model on the right, it flips this whole thing on its head. It's built on decentralized ownership and royalty-based payments. This finally aligns the incentives with the experts who are providing the real value.
So let's break that down a bit more. Centralization means just a few companies own all the data pipelines. And that one-time pay model, it's kind of like buying a song for a flat fee instead of paying the artist royalties every time it's played. It totally devalues the data's long-term importance. And the result? Well, why would a top-tier expert spend their valuable time giving you that deep, nuanced data AI needs? The incentive just isn't there. It makes no sense.
So, how do we fix this? Well, the solution is a really fundamental shift in how we think about data itself. It's all about building a new economic model by turning data into a true ownable asset.
And the key concept here is to assetify data. Now, what does that mean? Think of it like giving a piece of data its own digital deed or a title. You take a contribution, say an image, a data set, an expert's note, and you turn it into a unique, ownable asset that's recorded on a blockchain. Suddenly, it has a verifiable history and real tradable value, just like a piece of property.
This whole process of assetification is built on 5 key pillars. First, you've got provenance, so you know exactly where the data came from. No mystery. Then comes ownership, which lets you prove cryptographically who created it. Third, and this one is a total game changer, is licensing. This lets creators earn royalties every single time their data gets used. Fourth is derivation, so you can actually track how that data is being remixed and built on. And finally, privacy, which gives creators real control over who gets to access their work.
So, you might be asking, what's the tech that makes all this possible? It's blockchain. It provides that transparent public record that you don't have to trust any single company to maintain. This allows for something really cool called composability, which is just a fancy way of saying people can easily build on each other's work. And crucially, it locks in those long-term incentives we talked about, which is what you need to make this whole new data economy actually work.
Okay, I know this might all sound a little abstract, so let's ground it in a real-world example that perfectly shows both the problem and the huge opportunity here: the battlefield for robot data.
So right now, the market for basic robot data, how a robot arm picks up a block, it's dominated by a few big ecosystems like OXE and LaRobot. They've gathered so much of this easy-to-get data that it's become a commodity. It's cheap, it's everywhere, and there's not much value in it anymore.
But here's the thing. That's not where the future is. The next frontier for robotics AI isn't about getting more of that basic stuff. No. It's about high-fidelity, physically complex data. Think about a robot learning to fold your laundry or assemble a really delicate object. That kind of data is incredibly difficult and super expensive to get using the old model.
And this is exactly why the market is kind of stuck. In fact, one co-founder in this space just perfectly nailed it, describing the current situation as the brutal economics of the robot data industry. The old system just can't create the right incentives to get the complex data we need for the next big breakthrough.
And yet, and this is what's so interesting, despite these brutal economics, the community that's actually building this new data model is incredibly optimistic. A recent poll showed that over 65% feel bullish about the future. So there's this real energy, a belief that acidifying data is absolutely the way forward.
All right, so let's zoom back out for a second. All of these different pieces, acidification, the blockchain, these new incentives, they're all building towards a much bigger, much grander long-term vision.
Look, this is about way more than just creating a fairer market for data. The ultimate goal here is to build a foundational, human-centric knowledge layer for the entire AI ecosystem. Think of it like a new, decentralized piece of infrastructure where human knowledge is finally valued fairly and can be seamlessly integrated into the AIs of the future.
Which leaves us with one last big thought. We've all heard that phrase, right? Data is the new oil. But the real question we have to ask about our future is this: who should own the pipeline? The old model says it should be a handful of corporations. This new model, well, it suggests it could be all of us.